Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line, presented by Curad Performance, the official medical supplier of Ironman. I'm Mike Riley, and it's not only about you being able to find your finish line at a race or an event, but also in life. I'll talk with successful people from all backgrounds that have jumped those hurdles to get to where they are today, and they keep jumping them to keep moving forward. And my guest today, I'm very excited to have on the show, Shannon Spake. Her resume is quite impressive. NASCAR reporter, journalist, NFL sideline reporter, Ironman 70.3 athlete, and just recently finishing the Chicago Marathon. Hello, Shannon.
And I'm supposed to be an Ironman finisher as of this weekend. I was supposed to hear you say those words in Kona, but of course things change and we adjust, and I'll have to wait till next year, Mr. Riley, to hear those words.
And we're going to talk about that because so many, obviously, people were in your shoes, and some have adjusted well and some haven't. So we'll talk about that. But the other thing in your resume, which I think is so totally cool, that you got to be the voice in the Pixar Cars 3 movie, and your name was Shannon Spokes. How cool was that?
It was pretty awesome. My kids loved it too. They were in...
Yeah.
I think they were in first grade when that movie came out, which was just, I was the coolest mom ever. They don't care that I get to interview John Calipari or go to national championships or, do any of that stuff. They just thought it was cool that I got to meet Lightning McQueen and call a pit stop for those guys. So yeah, it was really an honor. I think one of the things that meant the most to me, Mike, was the fact that there are so many women in our sport in NASCAR. And I was sort of representing that, all of us, right, in this movie, because there were very few female roles in the Cars movie, and I was one of them. I was standing at Daytona with some of the actors and some of the men that work for Fox Sports and NBC that were in the movie as well, and I was like the lone woman, and it really kind of hit me there that I was representing all my friends and all the moms and the wives and the girlfriends and the reporters and the PR folks and all of that stuff. So it was really cool.
Well, that's why I really wanted to have you on as a guest, because obviously, and I was going to ask this a little later on. You know, you've been doing this quite a while as a journalist and TV reporter, sideline, and you knew when you came in, you were in a male-dominated business. Did that intimidate you, or did that push you forward to say, you know what, I can do this as well as anybody?
Well, I've always had that mindset for sure, that I can do this as well as anybody, because no one's going to outwork me. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. I think that hard work is genderless, and I think people pay attention and they recognize when you work really hard. As far as being intimidated, I don't necessarily think I was intimidated. I've always been sort of the confident, independent girl, woman, whatever, teenager who could kind of sit at the guys' table and be part of that group. But I do think I was very aware of being a woman and very aware of like what I wore and how I looked. I think times have drastically changed nowadays. Thank goodness. Girls can be girls. They can look beautiful. They can look sexy. They can do all these things and still do a really good job. But I think 15, 20 years ago when I came in, I was wearing business suits. I was, buttoned up. I had my hair back. I wanted to look as professional as I possibly could. And I kind of do air quotes because that's what I thought it looked like. So I was very aware of those things when I was first starting. And I love the fact that we can be women now. We can be beautiful. We can be sexy. We can really celebrate who we are, and all the hard work that we do to kind of to be the people that we are. And I think that's great.
Well, Shannon, do you remember like that? And it's interesting when you say business suits. I was thinking back of reporters and hosts dressed just like that. Do you remember the moment or the time or the show where, you know what, I can I can put a dress on. I can do this. I don't need to be looking like the guy next to me. Do you remember that turning point?
No, because I think it's still happening for me just because I did sort of start in a time where it was, a little more formal, I guess, conservative. And so I feel like I'm still pushing those limits and pushing those boundaries. And then as I get older, obviously, there are a lot of things that 45-year-old Shannon shouldn't be wearing. I'm like, maybe that skirt's just a little bit too short for me. It looks beautiful on some of the other women that I work with. But for me, I think for me, the biggest thing is just being comfortable. As you know, this is a physical medium. It's a visual medium. But I think for me, if I'm not comfortable in what I'm wearing, I don't care what it looks like. And I'll be the first one to be like, I'm not going to wear that. I am going to wear that. This is what I like. Again, I just think being comfortable, because you really have to, as you know, I've talked to young women and men getting into this industry, and I tell them that the number one thing is to just eliminate the distractions. It's got to be you, and it's got to be that camera, and that's it. And so anything that can be distracting to you, particularly maybe like what you're wearing or how you're feeling that day, I think it's really important.
Well, it reminds me, because you're so professional, and I've sat as a guest on the table with the interviewers, and when we worked together at the IRONMAN Foundation benefit in New York City, it was the first time, and we're in the dressing room together, and you're getting all ready and the whole deal, and you kind of intimidated. I go, okay, I better go take a look at myself, because usually, I remember, Shannon, I'm the guy that wakes up in the morning, brushes his teeth, don't care about the hair, because I know I'm going to wear a hat for 19 hours, out in the sun and all that good stuff, and just go do the deal. And I go, oh my gosh, the preparation of getting ready. I don't know if I could pull that off. There's a lot to do.
Well, I will tell you that when I did my first 70.3 in Raleigh, it was probably 93 degrees, and I got off the bike, and I had too many electrolytes. I'm farting. I'm boogers running down my nose. I'm pouring water over my head, and I'm literally like, I am the most disgusting I am ever going to be, or ever have been, right at this very moment. Thank goodness I have this hat on, and no one can really see what's going on under this. So yeah, I'm totally fine in that space as well.
Well, wait. Too bad we didn't know that about you and put a camera on you at that moment. That would have been the best.
It was so bad.
So you've got a background which explains to me, and I think it'll explain to others, your work ethic, because your father was a Marine, your grandfather and great-grandfather were in the Corps. Yeah. Your mom was in the Navy, a military background. My first question is, how did you not put on a uniform?
Well, that's a good question, right? Or at least have a husband who's in the military or something like that. So my dad went into the reserves when I was 3. So I wasn't around it my whole life. No. Very early on, I was born on a naval base in Meridian, Mississippi. My sister was also born on a naval base. And we did go to change of commands throughout my youth, which was really cool to be a part of. I can't join the military because of the rods that are in my back. Honestly, that's the truth. I don't necessarily think it would have been a way that I would have gone. But I listen, you know how I feel about Mike Ergo and all of the other military folks that I see and hear and talk to, and having that connection with my father and my grandparents and my mother. It is a great source of pride for me, 100%. I mean, I've been able to go to Pearl Harbor, and I've been able to do stuff on military bases. And every single weekend when I see the military, whether it be at NASCAR or the NFL, I tell them my connection. And I'm very, very proud to be part of a military family.
What lesson do you think it's taught you the best about life?
I think discipline. I think loyalty, sacrifice. I wish that I could be as selfless as some of the people that I know, some of the people that I've met. I just think it's incredible what they do for all of us, people that they don't even know.
Well, I alluded to it at the beginning that you have just run the Chicago Marathon because you weren't able to go to Kona.
Yeah.
And that's a tough transition, but you took something that was a negative and turned it into a positive. When you were running Chicago, what thoughts were going through your mind on, what, this is good, this is what I needed to have? I mean, what thoughts were going through your mind? Because you couldn't go to Kona, but here you were running a great marathon in Chicago.
Yes, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in 2018, when I was training for Ironman Florida, 2 weeks before that event, Hurricane Michael, it prevented that event from happening, and so I ran the New York Marathon that weekend, and so this is the second time that I've been able to make that transition. I honestly I forget how hard marathons are. And everybody says that the straight up marathons are harder than doing the Ironman events, the full Ironman, which I can't understand how that's true. It's funny. I heard the announcers throughout the course, people on the microphones, and I kept going, "Is that Mike? Is Mike here?" Seriously, I was like, sounds like Mike Riley. Mike, they didn't get Mike to come out here, did they? I think it was really amazing to be a part of it. It was amazing to see the crowd support. It was amazing to be one of, I think, 27 or 28,000 people, right, just a year and a half removed from us not being able to leave our homes. And for a lot of folks that were at that start line, this was their first event since the pandemic. It was really emotional for a lot of people because, as you know, this is therapy for a lot of us to be able to get out and do these events and be part of these spectacular feats, athletic feats, and to meet other people. And so it was really nice to be part of this group. The crowd support was incredible. It's about 75% of the time, Mike, I couldn't even hear the music that was pumping into my headphones. Yes, we could wear headphones on the marathon, unlike the Ironman.
No, not an Ironman.
Not an Ironman. It's all mental in Ironman too. It was really incredible to be a part of it and to reach my goal, which was under 4 hours. A lot of times when I go into these events, Mike, I just go into it to have fun. I'm not obviously a pro who's going to win. I just go to have a good time. This time I set a goal for myself. So there was it was a different kind of race for me for sure, trying to reach that goal.
Well, I love how you mentioned the therapy because so many of our peers, age group athletes, and pros have told me, this is my therapy. I call it medication in motion, and it really, you know what, it works. And one of the coolest things I saw, Shannon, was a picture of you with your twin boys after the race, and actions speak louder than words. That had to be a proud moment of you being able to get a picture with the boys and them seeing you run that race.
So my kids have obviously been around. I started doing triathlons in 2014, but they're 11. So that they were 3 or 4 when I started to do them. Yeah. They're at the age now where they get it. And they get that mommy's doing things with the boys and mommy's out there with, doing these things. And they're also running cross country right now. And so they also understand how hard it is to go out on a course and push yourself and get a PR and do all of those things. And I think it was really cool for them to see all of the athletes, to be part of that. And it gets me really emotional. Like when I cross that finish line and they're right there and they are so proud of me. And that is, we all question, Mike, we're on bikes for 7 hours. We're running for 4 hours. We're tired half the day. We're, totally messed up getting, while we're preparing mentally for races. And it makes you go, am I doing the right thing? Should I be around more? Should I be more present? And then you have moments like that and you realize that what you're doing really is, it means something.
Yeah, it really does mean something. And having the opportunity to be at finish lines, Shannon, some of the best parts for me is looking into the spectators and seeing the young ones and knowing they've got moms or dads or aunt and uncles coming in, but they're also watching everybody else like, oh my gosh, there's more people like my mom and my dad out there. I thought it was just them doing this crazy thing. Yeah. And it opens up a whole new world to them. So good for you. The boys started seeing that at 3 years old, and it will influence them for the rest of their lives. When you are able to, because so many age groupers have to juggle. They juggle life. You juggle
Yeah.
a huge job. You juggle the raising of your kids. You juggle a marriage, and everybody always asks, "How do you do it?" And I know it's a very hard one to answer, but what do you think that formula is in your life that you're able to balance that and have a good life?
Well, it's you know, use the word balance loosely because I don't ever really think that there is a balance when you're getting really close to events and you are doing these crazy times. There's a lot that falls to the side. Marriage, sometimes being present, and it's just that sacrifice that you have to realize that you're making at that very moment for yourself. There's so many different things that I've pulled from people over the years. Kelly Earnhardt is Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s sister. I did a podcast with her, and she once said, like, you're filling everybody else's cup throughout the day. You're filling your kids' cups, your husband's cups, your work cup. Who fills your cup? What is it that fills your cup? And so I do try to keep that in mind, that this is what fills my cup, and not just the physical act of doing it, but being part of the IRONMAN Foundation. I do say a lot, Mike, that the physical activity of getting to that start line and training, it's what allows me to meet people like yourself, or like the Pieces, or like Mike Ergo, or like any of the amazing human beings that I've met. And being part of the IRONMAN Foundation has added a whole new layer to what fills my cup. But in terms of doing it all, like, you have to wake up really early. You have to be very
Yeah.
disciplined. You have to get up at 4 and sometimes maybe 3:45, you know, I mean, and you got to go to bed early, and you have to have a really great support system and a great calendar and schedule things, and plan ahead. But Ironman, triathlon, endurance sports, it's my lighthouse. It's what keeps me on that straight course, and the structure that it gives me is really important in my life to make me better at everything that I do.
Well, in your work world, with all the other people you deal with, whether it's a cameraman or a guest host or whomever it is, do you see the influence of what you're doing wearing off on some of them?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I get text messages all the time, or DMs from people who say, I signed up for a 5K because of watching what you've done. I signed up for a 10K. I don't like, I battle with the amount of stuff that I put on social media, because I don't want to seem like I'm patting myself on my back or promoting things that I do. But when I get those messages from people who say, you've really inspired me by what you do and the fact that you post this and you show us it can be done, that's what really means a lot. It really does. And there are people that I work with who are like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a 5K. I'm going to do this. And they're super excited. And it's awesome. You know, I tell people out there when we're running a 5K or a 10K and they're like, oh, I'm so slow. I'm like, you're faster than the person sitting on the couch right now. Just remember that. Just remember you got up this morning and you're doing this, and that's awesome. And it's a huge part of my life, so I love sharing it with everybody.
Have you ever been, I know there's nerves that play into it, but a little bit scared to either go on the air or do an interview or walk up to a person and go, almost kind of on a cold thing after a game? Does that scare you a little bit that, oh my gosh, how am I going to do? Or do you get by that by just great preparation?
Well, yes. So preparation is key. If I am not prepared for something, I am nervous. Period. If I walk into an interview with a player or a driver or whatever, and I don't know sort of what's going on in their world, and they can throw something at me that I'm not ready for, absolutely, I'm nervous. I used to be so nervous. All the time. I remember interviewing Tony Stewart, and I swear that the mic was going to pick up my heartbeat because it was beating so hard and so loud because I was so nervous. Absolutely. As I've gotten older and closer, I think, to that 10,000 hour limit, it's not so much nerves as it is just, I'm anxious to get this game started. Let's just get it started. I want to do it. It's also realizing that you're representing a lot of people who have worked really, really hard to put this product on the air. And your 30-second report is not just about you messing up. It's about you representing everybody that's part of this crew. And so I take that really, I take that very seriously. As far as like walking up to somebody, so I got to interview Bill Belichick for the first time a
Wow.
couple of weeks ago, and people were like, "So how was he?" And I'm like, "He's everything I wanted him to be." He was. I wanted him to be like one word answer, because if he would have like given me like a long answer, I would have been like, "Huh." Because you expect him to be like Bill Belichick. And so I asked him like, "Hey, where do you need to see more consistency in the game?" And he's like, "Everywhere." Okay. So I asked him another question. I don't take it personal. I think that's the biggest thing. I think you cannot take anything personal. And I tell people that all the time, because it's not about me and what I'm asking him. It's about his team and what's going on in his space. I'm asking a question. We're all professionals. We know that I've got to ask that question. But anything that happens, you can't take it personal. He's not worried about me. He's worried about his team.
Yeah.
And I think that once I really got that and grasped that and believed that myself, didn't just say that as like, advice to somebody, it's not nerves anymore. It's, it's just like, this is my job. I'm going to do it, and let's do it.
But you don't always know what you're going to get when you walk up to someone
No.
to interview them. I mean, the Belichick personality is well known and all that good stuff. But what about a player? You walk up to a 6'4", 240-pound tight end and never really talked to him before. Is that like a gamble?
I don't think so. I wouldn't use the word gamble. I think everybody has different personalities. Some people are very quiet. Some people aren't. Some people are shy. Some people are focused. And I understand that more than most, being an athlete and know what my race mornings are like when I'm focusing and sort of going through my game plan. So again, I don't take it personal, because I do realize that there's a lot of things going on. It's not about me. If they don't give me the answer that I was hoping for, that's not like that. Maybe they don't answer it the way that I was hoping that they would answer it. And I just have to realize that everybody's different and every situation's different. I think it's about building relationships, though, Mike. And I think it's really important for me to just, even if I don't need something from somebody, to walk up and say, "Hey, how's it going? Thanks for taking a few minutes earlier this week on the phone to chat with me. I appreciate it. I don't even have anything to ask you right now. I just wanted to say hi." And I think that building those relationships is in anything in life is it's what gets you from point A to point B.
But boy, that's got to be really relevant in your world, because you know what the media perception is of everybody going, "Oh, the media just wants to get what they want to get, and they don't care about the person or the athlete or the interviewee." But if you break that down and build that relationship, that's where you see success, isn't it?
It's all about relationships. It's all about how you treat people. That's all you've got at the end of the day. My 30-second report, my questions that I asked, that stuff is just momentarily who I am and what I represent, and the way that I go about my business is what's going to define me as a person and as a professional and anything. So I think relationships are the most important thing to me.
Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Even after 40 years on the microphone at thousands of events, welcoming hundreds of thousands of athletes to the finish lines, I am still in awe by the incredible endurance of each and every athlete and what you display. The physical exertion, the sweat, and the challenges you put your body through deserve a level of support that match your dedication. As the official medical supplier for the Ironman US Series, Curad Performance Series lineups of wraps, tapes, bandages, supports, and braces give you, the serious athlete and weekend warriors alike, the optimal support needed to keep moving, including new far infrared kinesiology tape technology, which reduces energy made through body heat back to targeted areas to help you heal faster and enhance performance. So don't you let sprains and muscle pain hold you back. Recover smarter and shop the entire Curad Performance Series on Amazon. Well, I have to tell you about an interview that I watched sometime back, and I rewatched it again, a view of my idol Jimmy Johnson, because Jimmy is a San Diego boy, grew up in El Cajon in East County here in San Diego, and followed him from when he was doing dirt tracks out in El Cajon, years ago. But now it's your job, and I'm going to put this on you, Shannon. You got to get him to do an Ironman.
So unfortunately, he has decided to go do IndyCar for at least a year or two, because he's absolutely interested in doing an Ironman. We've talked about it many times, and he just doesn't have the time right now because of when our schedule is. Obviously, when he was doing NASCAR, that was a big thing. He went and ran the Boston Marathon, which we talked about in that interview, right. And he's done a 70.3, and he's a great athlete. He does. It's funny, Mike. I was doing competing in one of his events. He did a charity triathlon. It was a sprint triathlon here in the area, and I was lined up next to a guy who was like, "Yeah, I was running against Jimmy, and he beat me. Like I really wanted to beat him, but he beat me." And I'm like, you do realize like he's a professional athlete, right? Like he might race cars, but he's still a professional athlete, and like. And they're like, yeah, but I mean, he's a race car driver. I could beat him. I'm faster than him. I'm like, and Jimmy's really good. And Jamie McMurray's another one. He won't swim. He doesn't like to swim. But he did his Boston qualifier in 2:53, I think it was.
Whoa.
I know. He is so fast. And Matt Kenseth was on, who's a former race car driver. He was at Chicago this past weekend. And I want to say he did his in like 3 and change, 3:10, I think, something like that. So yeah, they're pretty good athletes, despite the fact that they put a helmet on and get inside a race car for
yeah.
But Jimmy wants to do one, and I believe me, if anyone has stayed on that with him, it's definitely been me.
Okay, good. I can't. That'll be fantastic. So tell us a story, Shannon, about. Because I've done it, when we're live and you mess up, everybody hears it. Yeah. And hopefully it's just not a bad mess up, but tell us about a time when you were on air and something happened, you messed up and it turned into a funny deal. I mean, that has probably happened to you a few times. Oh,
lots of times. Yeah. There was a basketball player that played for, UConn. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. I just can't remember his name, and that was the problem. I couldn't remember his name then either. And it just goes like it. Sometimes it's like in normal life, right? Sometimes you're like, man, I forgot what my train of thought. Like, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. But unfortunately, when that red light is on and you've got 30 seconds and they're counting down, you don't have the luxury to pause and try to catch your thought. You better be ready to go. So yeah, I've messed up a lot, and still do. But I think it's different now for me when I mess up, because I realize that mess up's not going to define me, or people aren't going to judge my body of work on this one mess up. And you got to just roll with it. But and I laugh at almost all of my mistakes at this point. I mean, if you can't look back and laugh at like your growth and your learning experiences and the speed bumps that you've gone over along the journey, I think, I mean, someone else is laughing at it. You better laugh at it yourself too.
Yeah. You've got to find humor in yourself. If you don't, you're going away. Totally. You just really have to. So besides triathlon, what other sport, is there any other sport that you like to play? I know it's a time factor thing, but I don't know, golf, tennis, pickleball?
No. And I'm not like, I'm a straight line person. I don't have very great coordination. So I can't do like mountain biking, or I can't do trail running, or, any of those things. No, actually, I mean, it's just the triathlon. It's running, it's swimming and biking. And I actually don't even really like the swimming and the biking part of it most of the time. I swear there's people that I know you love to bike and, go out on those long rides. And I just, sometimes.
Really? You don't?
Yeah, no, I'm not like a cyclist that loves to be out there riding for 5, 6, 7 hours. And swimming, I enjoy swimming, and I enjoy what I feel like after I swim. I hate getting in the pool. I hate getting in the pool. I hate getting in the open water. It's that moment between like standing there and actually getting in, that's the hardest part for me. And then once I'm in, I'm good. I grew up as a swimmer, so I do enjoy it, but it is a mental challenge to actually get in to the lake or two. And I hate open water swimming. I swim with my eyes closed the whole time because I see sharks. Like, I'm like, there's a shark, there's an alligator. I swear, there's an alligator. And I'm in a lake, so I start to see stuff. But it's part of the whole process. And again, it's part of being able to meet the people that I've met and do the things that I do.
Well, let me tell you, next October when you're in Kona, you're going to see the prettiest little fishies below you.
Sharks?
In Kailua.
I can see sharks?
No, you're not going to see, and there's no sharks there.
Jellyfish, though, Mike. There's jellyfish.
No, okay, there might be a few jellyfish. Just swim the other way. That's all you got to do. Shannon, who are your mentors? Is there someone you go to and go, you know what, I need to have a conversation and get back online or whatever? Is it your husband? Is it your best friend? Any mentors you have?
I have, I certainly have had mentors over the years. Now I feel like it's more like my friends, my peers. I go to one of my bosses. She's a woman. She's a little younger than I am, but I really feel like we have great conversations about just like not necessarily just career stuff, but just being and how to navigate things. Jamie Little is a very good friend of mine and has been for about 15 years. So we absolutely lean on each other. Marty Smith is a very good friend of mine and has been for a very long time. And I do find myself leaning on people who are also going through similar experiences. A, that they're in this industry. B, that they're parents. And I think that that's important because what we do, the amount of time that we're away from home, the platform that we're on, the exposure that we have, all of that stuff, I feel like the people that I can kind of lean on can relate to that. Maybe in a way that my husband can't. Certainly, my husband is a huge source of, I go to him for a lot, right? I lean on him. I talk to him a lot. But in terms of like what I'm going through specifically at this moment, I feel like people who are also going through that can really relate.
Have you done a workout or a run after Chicago at all this week? Have you done anything?
I barely walk. My knees, I woke up the other night and I was like, I felt like I had surgery on my legs. My legs were so sore. I had to host a breast cancer, a cure for breast cancer benefit last night. And I was so tired, Mike. I was like, you know what? I better switch to white wine. It's got sugar in it. That's the only way I'm going to stay awake. But yeah, I like I said, this marathon, this was my fourth. The first one I did with my father. We did Disney, and my time was 5:45 because I stayed with him. The second one I did was New York, which was the following year. That was in 2005, I think. And my time was 4:45. When I did New York again in 2018, my time was 4:03. And this time I really wanted to get under 4. And it was a real mental, emotional, physical, spiritual challenge. Everything about it. To be at mile 3 and looking down at my pace every 30 seconds and wondering if I would be able to sustain for 4 hours. And it was a lot. It was a lot.
You actually build yourself up and break yourself down mentally almost every mile when you do that.
It was a lot. It was a journey that I had not experienced because of the goal that I like. And now you kind of know what these pros go through, and I'll never be a pro. I'll never know what I have to hit a 2-hour half marathon or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was my one go at it, because when I go do Ironmans, I'm like, I'll finish before the cutoff and I'm good. I don't,
well, You mentioned earlier about people you can't understand when people say, well, running a solo marathon is harder than doing it at the end of an Ironman. My son in 2013 finished Ironman Arizona. In April of 2014, he's running Boston. And I kind of knew he didn't really put a whole lot of training in, but because he relied, well, heck, I went like 350 something with the Ironman. I can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, what I did was I told him, I said, remember, your mom's PR is like 3:40. And he goes, well, he blew up run. He ran like a 4:05. He couldn't believe he goes, that was harder than the Ironman. So it is.
Really? Yeah.
Firsthand.
I find that hard to believe, but yep. And then I saw, hey, listen, we all know how it goes, right? You could be the best of the best, and I saw guys who were much more physically in shape than I was. They're in wheelchairs at mile 24 because they've cramped up, or on the Ironmans, it's like your bike fails, or something. Every race is different. Every race has a different start, beginning, and end, and journey, and they're all very, very different.
Well, people, after they finish an Ironman or a marathon, they go, okay, I'm done. I don't want to think about it again. But then it's like 3 days later, they're planning out the next race. Have you found yourself doing that?
Oh, are you kidding me? I finished Ironman Raleigh or 70.3, and I was like, that was my first. I was like, I am never doing that again. And now I've done 7 of them. So yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm like that right now. I'm like, I hate doing marathons. Why? And the only reason I did this marathon was because Kona wasn't there. And the only reason I did the last marathon was because, Ironman Florida was postponed. Yes, every time I'm like, and then I'm like, well, I gotta go Boston. Gotta check that one off, Now I've done New York, Chicago, and kind of gotta do Boston. So,
And I remember talking to Dave McGilvery when the schedule was set, when Hawaii was still going to happen in October. It would have been Chicago, Ironman, and then Boston on the same weekend. I mean, how crazy would that have been? It's
incredible.
But obviously, we didn't happen. Would you consider doing the World Championship in St. George next May?
I can't because of NASCAR. So, May's really busy with NASCAR. So the plan is Kona in October. I'll be there.
There you go.
That's the plan right now. So my husband might divorce me by then because he's like, are we going to go through this again, Shannon? And I'm like, yes, we are. I'm just glad that they postponed it before my 105-mile bike ride that I had planned that weekend. Because if they would have postponed it after that 105-mile bike ride, I would have maybe been a little bit more upset about it. I mean, I was pretty upset about it. It was devastating. As you know, I know you've talked to so many people. It was a real punch in the gut to find out that it wasn't going to happen. I felt like I was getting very close to not only being physically ready, but being mentally prepared, as mentally prepared as I could. I had started watching a bunch of blogs and podcasts and things on the course and preparing for the course in terms of like what to expect from a heat and a wind and all of that stuff. So I had really started the mental preparation for Kona, and which I didn't do for Ironman Florida. So when Ironman Florida was postponed, I wasn't as upset. I was almost a little relieved because I didn't feel like I was ready. But this one, I was getting pretty close to being ready. So.
Yeah, because it was such a long time in the making, for goodness sakes. You've got day after day after day and the training and the regimen. So many people were in the same boat, Shannon. It was difficult. Hey, what do you want your boys to really, the biggest lesson you'd like them to learn from your actions and from your husband's actions and how you guys lead your life? What do you want your boys to walk away with?
Be a good person and have respect for others. I think that's the biggest thing is be a good person. I hope, and I feel like I am raising them to be good people and to be self-aware and kind, and realizing that everybody has something going on, and a small piece of kindness in their life, I think can make a big difference. I know can make a big difference. And I think that that's it. And I think that when you show that kindness to other people, you also show that kindness to yourself. I feel like when I was in high school and when I was in college, I made a lot of decisions and I did stupid stuff, and I wasn't kind to Shannon. And so I think that when you really have kindness in your heart for other people, you're going to be kind to yourself as well. And I think that that's important. My kids fight. They're 11-year-old boys. They fight, but I feel like they have a great deal of respect for each other, which is the most important thing.
Good for you. That's fantastic. And that will happen. You're setting the foundation
for them. I think that's important too. I think a lot of parents, I'm the parent, this is how it's going to be. And I feel like my kids and I have conversations, even though they're 11, and they know that mommy really respects them. And even though mommy is law, we will definitely have conversations and talk things out. So I think that's important.
So if triathlon hadn't entered your life, Shannon, where do you think you'd be in your professional life right now? Do you think you'd be where you are at today and all you've accomplished if triathlon wasn't a part of your life?
That's a really deep question, Mike. I don't know.
I don't need a deep answer.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. I don't know if I would be I know I wouldn't be as fulfilled as I am. I think that the triathlon community, the triathlon races, the physical act of it, all of that stuff, it makes me mentally, physically, all of that stuff better, emotionally better, spiritually better. I feel like Nick Saban, almost every time I've interviewed him, I've heard him say, like, you learn more about yourself during times of adversity than you do during times of victory, I guess. And I feel like every time I go out for a run, whether it be a 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 or 20, you're putting yourself through some sort of adversity. And I feel like you learn more about yourself. So I do feel like I'm a better person. I feel like I'm more aware of myself and my actions because of triathlon and because of the amount of time that I spend sort of reflecting during some of those long runs and rides. And certainly, as I've mentioned a couple of times now, that the people that I've met along the way have made me a better human as well.
Why'd you become, Shannon, involved with the IRONMAN Foundation?
Why did I?
Yeah.
When Sarah called me back in 2016, I think Dan Bergelin was the first one that reached out to me. And then when Sarah reached out to me, I think I just wanted like free swag. I just wanted like to have some cool branded stuff and be like, like have something that said Ironman on it. I didn't really know what it entailed at the time. And obviously now it's been 5 years in the running, and I've done service projects, and I do feel like I am I don't want to say like a great ambassador, but I really spread the word about the Ironman Foundation. It's part of who I am, and I feel like I really love what it's done for me, and I love being part of the family, big time. And obviously everyone knows that by every message that I do, it's got something to do with the iron. It's part of me.
Yeah, I became involved 4 years ago, and I sometimes kick myself that I didn't become involved earlier, just because I don't have the time and stuff like that. But how it's fulfilled of being able to give back to the communities we race in, and we engulf a community, we take it over, close the streets, but to be able to give back to that community through the foundation is probably one of the best things that I've ever been able to do in the sport. So I, like you, just love it. So let me tell you about the last question on Find Your Finish Line. It comes out of, you're going to love this, it comes out of the Baja 1000 racing world, which is a world I'm very close to because our best friends have won the Baja 1000 between grandfather, father, and son, I think 8 or 9 times. The uncle has won it 2 or 3 times, the McMillan family out of Southern California. And I've raced the Baja 1000 in the second seat in trophy trucks. And
how'd you feel the day after that, Mike?
I rolled out. When we got done, I rolled out. I couldn't even walk. I couldn't even. It was the most exhilarating, beat up. It was like back-to-back Ironman, day after day. But it was great. But afterwards, they get together and they call it table racing. They all sit around, whether it's out in the desert or, in Cabo San Lucas, wherever, and they reminisce about the event. And it's a big tradition because there's, so many days, so many things can happen. And it always comes to reminiscing about either a funny aspect or something they couldn't believe happened. So I call it tri-table racing. Reminisce about an event that you did that you remember the memory as good or bad or indifferent or whatever, but first thing comes to your mind. Reminisce, tri-table race with us.
So I think the most impactful one was when I ran the 2018 New York Marathon. And I'll do marathon because I was in New
Okay.
York for September 11th. And I lived in Queens at the time in Astoria. And so that night on September 11th, when I walked back to my house from work in the city, I had to walk across the Queensboro Bridge with some people.
Wow.
And I remember sort of looking back in that space and seeing the smoke and seeing the fire, the lights of the fire trucks and the ambulances. And I remember that obviously it was a really impactful moment on my life and on most people, obviously everyone's life. And so when I crossed the Queensboro Bridge, mile 16 in 2018 on foot again, and obviously the last time I was on foot on that bridge was on September 11th, it definitely hit me. It was a moment for me to sort of reflect on that day and how that day affected my life and who I am and the impact that it had on me. So that was, I think, one of the biggest ones. I already told you about the Raleigh thing, getting off the bike and feeling like, I mean, there were frogs everywhere, right? But it was, that was, I think, the biggest one. And then when I did Muscle Man this past summer, I almost tapped out in the swim. I actually had to hold on to 3 different life boats because the waves were so bad and I couldn't catch my breath and my wetsuit was a little too tight. I had a real hard time and I almost tapped out. Like 3 times I almost tapped out. And to be able to get past that hurdle and to be able to make that swim and then ultimately finish the race, just makes you so much stronger, right? You're like, I did it. I got past that. I can get past anything. And so that was most recently, I think, a really big one for me.
Wow. You are so a sports reporter. Mike, I almost tapped out. I love that.
I did. I was like, I mean, I saw them pull like 4 people from the lake, Mike. It was a rough swim. And I just was like, how am I going to do this? I don't even know if I can do this. Like, and I think in the water, you're most afraid that at any moment, like something, like you just don't know how your body's going to respond. Like at any moment you could have a panic attack and you just can't control it and it just happens and you're in the water. And so it's a real sort of like, where am I? Where am I? Like, how am I? Like, where am I here? Right? Not where am I physically, but where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Checking in with yourself to make sure that you're in a good space.
I've been there. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So our age groupers out there are going through a lot, as we all are. What advice would you give them, Shannon?
I mean, I guess what we just already talked about, we're watching, we see you. I think, especially with women, with moms who, have to not just race, but also have to worry that the kids are taken care of, that the husband and they're going to be doing something while I'm racing. And I remember like wiping one of my boys' runny nose, like in transition, ran over to them and gave him a hug and he was crying because he was fighting with his brother. And I wiped his nose during transition. I mean, it's, I think as a mom and as a age grouper and as a woman, and we see you, we know what you're doing and we know the sacrifices that you're making and how hard it is. And we see you and you're doing great things and keep it up.
I love that. We see you. That is very powerful. So how can people find Shannon Spake? Where do you, to be able to converse with you, talk with you, follow you?
I'm on Insta. I'm on Twitter, Shannon Spake. So pretty active on all. I try to stay pretty active on all, posting, whether it be the workouts or family stuff or obviously NFL stuff this time of the year. But shoot me a message. I love hearing from folks, especially folks who are just, inspired in some way.
Well, Shannon, I have to tell you, I love it when I see you on the TV, whether it's with NASCAR or the sidelines, and right away, I know her. That's so cool. I become this, like I know her. And so sometimes, and people come up and say that to me, and I go, "What are you talking about? No big deal. It's just me."
Well, that's the best part of my job, Mike, honestly, is when my family and friends feel pride in seeing me and seeing something that I do. I did not get into this business to be famous. It's something I'm really not comfortable with. I'm perfectly happy with the anonymity, but I do get really excited when I'm making my friends and family proud.
Well, Shannon, the endurance world of running and triathlon and Ironman is fortunate to have you among our ranks. So thank you very much for your time today. Keep doing what you're doing, and I can't wait till we can be behind a podium together again one day.
Absolutely. And when I can hear you say those famous words to me next year in October, hopefully.
I guarantee it. I won't be in the porta potty. I guarantee it.
I will come and find you in the porta potty, Mike Riley.
I know.
If you are in the porta potty when I cross that finish line.
Honest. I won't. I won't. I promise.
I will come and find you.
I know you will. I don't want that door flying open. Okay, so I'll be there for you.
There you go. Promise.
All right. Have a great day. Take care of yourself and keep doing it.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for listening in to another edition of Find Your Finish Line presented by Curad Performance, the official medical supplier of Ironman. If you like the show, leave a review for us if you would. We'd love to hear it. Good or bad, just leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Hey, and always keep in mind, you're the cause of your own experience. Keep those experiences positive, and you'll find your finish line. As always, my warmest aloha.